Enrique there, but they said a civilian wasn't as important as a police officer. So we put a police officer in there, and then, so, you know, Enrique is no longer with us, and he actually did a lot of other things. He retired.
This is a captain.
He's a captain.
You're the highest ranking Latino in MPD?
No,
Angel.
Angel.
And how many police officers do you have who speak Spanish?
I know we're about 8-9%.
Yeah, I think it's 9%.
So I don't mean that they may not be Latino, but about 9% of your workforce is either Latino or can speak Spanish.
Yes.
But out of that, the riots, there was a study, and they, you know, they're supposed to have like a, what it was, like a task force to make sure that there are officers that are moving into the ranks, like, you know, having passed the test to become inspectors, commanders, and we don't have like one, or is it because they're not taking the test?
Well,
do we have,
you know, just like I say to people like Carlos, you can get somebody that's an outstanding sergeant, they have to take a test. I mean, it takes time to move up to the ranks. You take sergeant's test at 3 years, lieutenant's test at 5 years, captain's test at 7 years, and then after that it's an appointed ranks. But, you know, they have to want to. I mean, I have offered people promotions in appointed ranks that have turned it down. It's a very demanding job, very demanding job. But, you know, like you said, they have to move up to the ranks. They got to take those tests first. Once they get to the rank of captain, then it's, you know, there's appointments. But there are still people that turn those down.
Chief, I've been the lightning rod for questions the last few days when people found out we were doing this. And now that we're on this, one of the questions was, is I can't remember your name now, Matthew, right? Is that your PIO back there? Or
Matt Roman, no, Matt Roman, he's a special assistant. He works in my office. He works on a lot of special projects, but he has worked on secure communities and outreach with liaisons.
Okay, well, here's the complaint.
And he is a policy guy.
Well, here's the criticism that came to me, which is Spanish media. The Spanish media, Spanish language media, has a lot of hard times with MPD,
Well,
even for the most basic, like the street clothes and things like that.
They're in final process now.
We've been trying to hire Spanish speakers for
Yes.
PIO for a long time.
Yeah, so
I think we have 2.
Yes.
because the radio station in Spanish, I'm going to make the question in Spanish, then you can translate and
Okay, okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Bueno, trabajo para Tu Familia Sol de Radio El Sol.
I work for Radio Sol, a program
Así
called
es.
Family Sol.
Hace como 3 o 4 semanas
About 3 or 4 weeks
traté
ago.
de comunicarme con la policía de DC
I tried to
para
communicate
hacer un
with the
informe
DC police
sobre la violencia y las armas en DC.
to do a report on violence and weapons in DC.
Pero lamentablemente nunca tuve respuesta. Traté de enviar 2 veces un correo electrónico y siempre me transferían para la oficial, para hablar con la oficial Crown.
Okay, hold on a moment. Don't go too fast for me. Lamentably, I tried twice emails to find this information, and both times I was referred to a officer.
Gwendolyn Crown.
Bueno, no.
Y en ambas cartas siempre he pedido conversar con un representante en español explicando que la emisora es en español.
And in both times I explained in my email that we wanted to have someone from MPD speak to us in Spanish because the radio station is in Spanish.
Siempre me transfirieron con la oficial Crown.
They continued to transfer me to...
Bien, ella no habla, claro, ella no habla español, pero
She
siempre me
doesn't
han
speak
transferido
Spanish,
con ella.
but I'm always transferred to her.
Y yo creo que a ella tampoco le gustó mi acento y la manera de escribir.
She said
Nunca me contestó amigablemente.
She thought
Nunca.
she said she thought that she didn't like the words I used or the accent I had, and that I was always not treated with any kind of urgency or any kind of importance.
Sí, bueno, nunca tuve respuesta. Recuerdo
I
que
never
le
had a
escribí-
response.
Recuerdo que le escribí al oficial Mejía también.
I also wrote Sergeant
Sí. Y
Mejia.
bueno, ahora tengo el gusto de conocerlo.
So now she has the pleasure of meeting them both, I would imagine.
Mi pregunta es solo para saber,
My question is,
solo para saber si realmente en algún momento los medios vamos a tener la oportunidad de tener a alguien que hable español, como nexo, con la jefa de policía
los
de
medios
DC.
hispanos. My question is, which is the question I asked, and she's asking again, is are we going to have a nexus? Are we going to have a contact within MPD for the Spanish-speaking media? And that was the complaint that came from another report.
En español, si después puede traducir para la radio, por favor.
Sí.
Gracias.
What we were doing in the past, and I know Carlos has done several interviews for us, typically when we get an interview request for Spanish, we'll ask Carlos or one of our other Spanish-speaking officers to handle it. The problem is with police officers working those various shifts and having so many other responsibilities, that doesn't work. So
Lo que han hecho en el pasado es tener we can't translate all this meetings, it'll be forever, but let's translate this, she wants to put this on the show. Lo que ha pasado en el pasado es que cuando han pedido, se lo han dado a varios policías uniformados, pero que tienen muchas cosas que hacer y no han podido ellos, así que ella está en el proceso de, you're in the process.
So we have announced vacancies and we're in the process of hiring 2 Spanish-speaker civilian public information officers.
Entonces han anunciado 2 posiciones dentro de la policía para civiles para dar información a los medios hispanos. I imagine that these 2 individuals will provide information to Spanish-speaking
They will
media.
handle the Spanish-speaking media, yes.
Okay.
Gracias. Thank you.
We did pretty good on that one. Does anybody have any questions about personnel, communications?
But can I did you ever get your interviews?
No,
Did my hand
never. And I want to share. I think.
were you told that nobody was available, or did she try and find somebody?
Wait for my answer.
Well,
I talked to Officer Crown, but any
Because usually
answer.
when a request comes in,
She couldn't
she'll
set
try
up
and
an
reach
appointment.
Carlos. And then sometimes that takes a little bit of time. Usually she'll try and reach Carlos and then have somebody get back to you unless it was, if you have a deadline.
Yes.
And we don't make your deadline, that's one thing, but if if we were able to get Carlos and get him.
Yeah, the officer
Do you
Crown
know about this,
answered.
Sergeant? Do you know about this?
Do you
Yeah.
remember maybe
She
my
emailed.
email?
And what's
Yes.
what happened? What's the holdup? I referred her back to the PIO for.
Yes, the
So
same.
Gwendolyn, that's the PIO?
Did Gwen send it to you, or what did Gwen say?
I just forwarded. She sent me an email. Maria sent me an email.
She sent
And I-
him the email, he sent it to me, I said we needed the okay from PIO.
Did they okay it?
Never.
Yeah,
You didn't get anything back?
No.
And on Wednesday I was in DuPont Circle, close to the police, and I asked just in case, maybe because I was there, she can take some time to make the interview, because I already sent my 2 emails, but nothing. It's just.
You can copy me on those requests in the meantime, I can approve it.
Okay.
Well,
She should have gotten back to you though.
The question and the criticism that I got was from the retired now Ernesto Clavijo from Univision, which is the most important Hispanic language media in Washington. And he actually complimented Gentile, I want to say Jim Gentile, but it's not.
Gentile,
Joe Gentile. And said that when Joe Gentile was there was more communication, but that since that time,
That's the first time we've heard that one.
for Spanish language media access and
Well, here's
information
what's different.
with MPD
So-
is a problem from a while.
So here's what's different. I could have
Do you agree with that?
Spanish-speaking police officers in
Do you
that
agree with that?
office.
Do you agree with that? That it's a problem?
Do I agree with that? I think it's a problem.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
So here's the problem though. If you think about, for me as the police chief, I could take Spanish-speaking police officers and put them in that office so we can handle all the media inquiries. But guess what happens? Now I don't have them on the street when a victim is been robbed and is trying to get a Spanish-speaking police officer to give him help.
Well, you said.
That's why I hire the civilians.
Yeah, you said it, and we're going to
But,
report it, that there will be
But
2.
there's also,
two PIOs.
MPD does weekly shows on the radio to talk about what's going on with El Sol. So maybe El Sol can also kind of partner in that. They do weekly,
I know Rosa is all the time in her soul.
Always.
So I think that,
Yeah.
I have to be like communication.
You have to communicate with
You do
your
the
also.
Yeah, I have an officer
Yeah.
here, and I go there also.
Yeah. So I
I think you have to coordinate within your own El Sol,
Because because I know, and this is because I have experience when I email, and I have reported this Telemundo and Univision, sometimes national. I email and it gets done real
Yeah, it gets
quick.
done fast.
So so we need you guys need to know,
Yeah.
Well, I think the good thing is we can report out of here from
Yeah.
the chief's mouth.
Do we have
There are
any
going to be
ETA
2
on hire?
new PIO that are going to help
Yeah.
deal with the Spanish. Okay, so this is great. So we can all leave now. No. I'd like to open up the floor just for a few minutes because I think this topic is something dear to Roxanne's heart. It's dear to mine. Since as long as I can remember, Chief, since when I met you, all of you guys, it's been about little old ladies with their purses, people who walk out of cash-only places, husbands that beat kids and beat wives to get money from them. All of these things, Latinos, I don't know where the statistics are here, I'm sure somebody will tell me, but Latinos are much greater percentage of victims of crime, in particular violent crimes in the District of Columbia. And I really would like to ask Roxana to talk about that because on the phone you told me that that's an issue that concerns
I think
you.
robberies.
It's been a problem for years,
Right.
but it is increasing. And in fact, what we're seeing is that robberies as a whole have been much higher in the last year or so than they had been previously. And I think part of that, well, there's 2 things that I think that are behind it. One is that the city is developing and doing so well economically. You've got all these new places where there's restaurants and bars and nightlife. And it used to be just like Georgetown and Adams Morgan. Well, now it's Georgetown and Adams Morgan, Chinatown, U Street, 9th Street, H Street Northeast, right? And so what's happening is you have people being targeted for robberies around those places, leaving those places late at night, any place that serves alcohol, because they're thinking, well, if you've been drinking, you might be an easier target. So I know in the Latino community, we have a place up on Kennedy Street where we have found at least 6 or 7 cases, right, where the victims of robberies have been coming from a specific establishment. So we've been doing outreach to that establishment to try and raise awareness. People who commit crimes are predators. That's what they do. They look for any weakness. A woman, a person who may be drunk, a person who is not paying attention is another. Sorry, but specifically they target in some communities, and I'd say probably a lot in the 5th, Ward 5, 5D, 60, 70, day laborers. Their perception is that day laborers carry a lot of cash. Their perception is that day laborers won't report to police, which is why we've done a lot of outreach. And I know my Latino liaison guys, if they're out and they see day laborers doing work on a home, like doing construction, they'll do outreach right there, and they'll tell them, you guys be aware of your surroundings, lock the door while you're in here. So those actually seem like they've gone down a little bit recently, but targeting of Latinos, Asian folks around the communities is pretty high. In fact, I'll give you the statistics. I think overall Latinos make up, 12%, was it, of the robberies?
Yeah,
or 9%?
No, just over 10, like just under 11. It's 10.8.
Like 10% of all of our robbery victims. But I read the reports every morning, and I can tell you, and nationwide, I can't say that there's any connection or not, but nationwide, I had read several articles about Latinos being jumped and robbed and beaten following the Zimmerman Trayvon case, where there was derogatory comments made and things like that. So we don't know if there's any connection to that in this recent uptick or not. But there's also been white men jumped and beaten and robbed for the same thing, where comments about that have been made. We haven't seen any specifically tied to that here, but I read those reports every morning, and you see a lot of Hispanic male and female victims. We just made an arrest on a case from Friday, Hispanic male and female. The other thing I would say is, if your biggest vulnerability outside of the nightlife areas is waiting for buses, and that's every victim. That's every victim. And again, predators go to places where they perceive they can, find a victim, and bus stops are big targets early in the morning because our Latino population.
Towards day work using midnight tour duty out there hitting the hot spots, as well as, like you said, any day labor sites, like the Home Depot site or any hardware stores where guys are looking for work. We're out there kind of reaching out to them. Any construction sites, we go out there and make sure that they're practicing safe things like locking their doors, making themselves secure while they're there.
Chief, just one, I'm thinking, I had the privilege of working with you before the digital era. And as a matter of fact, you were one of the, in the vanguard of using data to policing, but is there any statistics that we can, recent statistics on Latino crime victims that we can share?
Hey, Rob, did you bring that folder in?
Yes.
Let me see that. I'll give you the statistics on the percentage of crimes that Latinos are. I don't think it's going to give you as clear a picture as I can give you without the statistics. So overall, robberies this year has been a huge problem. So we were up about 60% citywide for all robberies, and now we're only up about 8%. So we've been hitting it really hard, and that includes, kind of going to areas where we know they're targeting victims and trying to be proactive and prevent those crimes from happening. But percentage of overall crimes where Latinos are victims, it's 9% for robberies. I gotta find it now. Here we go. And somebody asked me about the Latino liaison. Are we going to move to that?
Yeah,
as a topic?
we move every way you want, Chief.
In terms of your Latino liaison unit now, we've got 51 members that are signed up to be liaisons now all around the city. And they're all 7 districts. In fact, we've got, 1D has just, a few, but 2D has 16. So anywhere from 3 to 16 in each of the 7 districts, and in the specialized units as well. And what they do is they go and do follow-up with these victims after the fact. So I think they've done 240 follow-ups so far this year. I have to find my statistics. I brought too much stuff. Okay, so from July 12th, 2011 through July 12th, 2012, so for roughly the past year, the percentage of victims of assault with deadly weapons that are Hispanic is 6%, burglary 3.8%, homicide 2.2%, robbery, the biggest number, 10.9%, sex abuse 7.9%, stolen autos 6%, thefts 5.4%, and theft from autos 5%. So, although it sounds like a small percentage, I can tell you it's clustered in areas where it's very high in certain areas.
How can I get?
I can give it to you.
Get a copy, yeah? No, pero bueno, it's mine, so you can copy it.
They'll fight over it. I mean,
well, believe it or not, when we have people take the language, what's the language test we have to take for the stipend?
The language proficiency.
The language proficiency test? And I understand it's really hard.
No, it's not. It's not. But the question that I have is the following. We keep talking about our Latino victims, etc. And my question centers on the following. What sort of experiences can you share with us with respect to motivating the Latino community to be more responsible and engaging in civic action, to be more collaborative with police? In other words, we're very appreciative of all the stuff that you're doing, but there needs to be some sort of reciprocity from our side. And I think that we have failed to truly engage in a sustainable relationship with the police. And that relationship is also compromised by the intense presence of ICE. And that's why earlier I was saying that we have to separate those, because if you're engaging in education and motivating the community to be more responsive and engaging, and you have ICE coming down like, the Gestapo, that sabotages your intention. So how other communities have been able to be more responsive or collaborative?
I tell you what I think would go a really long way. I have the Latino liaison guys. They're fantastic, and they go out to talk to the day laborers and go to the businesses where we have a large number of people being targeted, leaving the business late at night. it would be a lot, and people are receptive. I mean, the business owners are receptive, but I think it would go a long way if we had advocates from the community, other Latinos that are just, you know, people that live in the community that went out with us and talked to these business owners. For example, the place on Kennedy Street where we've had a bunch of people getting a target, call cabs for people if they're, you know, if they've had too much to drink, call them a cab to get them home or something so that they're looking out for their customers. And we can go in and ask them to do that. I don't know how receptive they are, but if it was a member of the Latino community that went in and asked those questions and looking out for victims too. And you can do it with us or you can do it separately, but I think that goes a long way because...
Can you tell us the name of the establishment?
What's the place on Kennedy Street?
It's 829. 827 and 829.
Owner's Luis Marroquin.
Yeah, there's two bars right next to it. It's like 827 and 831.
Yes, that's it. Look
Yeah.
Road.
So it would be really good if they heard from Latino people in the community, hey, look out for your customers here, you know. First of all, be careful in serving, don't overserve people, of course, but, you know, if they're, you know, gonna leave here at 2:30 in the morning and try and walk 10 blocks, you know, call them a cab. So, and the other thing is that, you know, might be a good idea if we can advertise this through the internet, you know, have some of the Latino members of the community come and go on a ride along. You know, come on a ride along with police and see what we do, see how we interact with people, and that builds some relationships too. But I think if we got together and tried to do some outreach to our victim population, like the day laborers and some of these businesses, that would go a long way.
Hey, wait a minute, Chief, ride along with you?
You can ride along with anybody in the Metropolitan Police Department.
Well, I'll start a list here for somebody. I used to do a ride along with Robert Bob. Robert Bob and I used to do
Yeah,
ride.
but you wore a vest, man.
Well, okay.
I'm not giving you a vest.
Before we get off this topic, there's one last thing, and I'm so glad. Who manages your detectives, Chief?
Chief Newsom.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know, but Chief, Brooms, you guys, there's a story that when the court case is over, I want to write, but I want to publicly in front of everybody recognize a detective in MPD. There was a murder on 18th Street in 05, 06. The murder went cold. It was a young Latina who was a paralegal. It was a crime of passion. She was gay. She got stabbed to death by her lover. I don't know if that detective in MPD talked to the mother and swore to the mother that she'd solved the crime, or what it is that motivated that detective. I can't even tell you her name right now, but you guys can figure that out. This woman would not stop until she found that the person, another Latina that had stabbed her to death, was in Argentina. She went to Argentina. There had never been an extradition. There had never been an extradition from Argentina to the MPD other than political things, never for a homicide. This detective, out of stubbornness or
Convictions.
I don't know what it was, but they apprehended. This detective came from Washington, traveled a couple of times. It's a good gig if you can get it. Traveled a couple of times to Buenos Aires, and found this woman there, had them arrest her there, and had them extradite that woman to Washington, D.C. I figured she's not a Latina, she's an African-American detective, but it's a serious, horrendous case, and she did a really above and beyond the Call of Duty job, and I just wanted to say that publicly and commend the department in this one case, the good job they did because of that one particular detective.
Thank you.
You know, I think we can wrap up this about staffing and all of that and the victims. The only I love it. Back in the back, it's the person that's going to lead us into this last segment. At least you can talk about anything. The chief is going to give us what, 20 more minutes or something like that. But Maria Patricia Corrales is the president of Fiesta DC. Fiesta DC, there are, it's 40 years this has been going on. It died for 2, I think. It was revived again, and now it is growing explosively because it is among the most important, the most, the biggest Latino event in the city. So we just wanted you have the chief here to talk to her about it. I have some questions, I'm sure other people do too. Why don't you tell us what you're going through with Fiesta BC and how you can help the police can help you.
Well, I mean, I can tell you right now, the deputy mayors, both Vivi Otero and Deputy Mayor Ponder, are working with the Special Events Task Force to, by the end of next week, come up with proposed locations. The concern, and I haven't been involved in any of the discussions, this is really at a higher level now, but the Special Events Task Force raised significant concerns because there was over 90,000 people that attended last year. It is one of the best attended events in the city. Problem is because of the location, too many people in too small an area, it's not safe. It really isn't. And in fact, last year there was an incident where someone was injured and we couldn't get an ambulance in. So they're going to propose 4 or 5 different venues where maybe the parade going in one area and then the festival off like on an adjacent street or something like that. But their big concern is making sure people are safe. I mean, we've seen things go very, very wrong when crowds get too compacted. And it can be dangerous for the participants. And we want this to be a nice, safe event. So that's the best I can tell you is I talked to the Deputy Mayor this morning and he said they would have something to you guys by the end of the week.
Thank you very much for your update, which is the same update we got it, many of us at the table. I have 2 things. Yes, indeed, we had the best event that all the community was part of, but indeed also we had the best security. All of you were at the site. We pay security for police doing the traffic on Adams Mill Road. Therefore, everything was staggered to come and happen that day. But I did not have support that day from whoever needed to come and take the vehicles out of the street. I begged. I did everything in the book that I could possibly do that day. That case, from my point of view of an organizer.
Do you have a liaison person at Department of Public Works? Can we make sure they get one? Just a liaison, somebody that'll be available that day?
Yeah.
I mean, we try and coordinate that too, but that'd be good if
We
you had that
can
up front.
work on that. Once we get the final, then we can
Final, but let me put it this way, and the other aspect to me is, yes, I always say that festivals in the Hispanic community are our way to show what we are, and what we are is music, nice food, and we show off our dresses, which is, that's what we are. And also with that, we bring a lot of people, yes indeed. But the people and the crowd that comes into our events are not thinking about shooting somebody, are not thinking about doing bad, looking at another person's, have to have a good time. Therefore, from that perspective point of view, that they are gonna come in and they're gonna see a lot of people and they're gonna come with guns and boom, 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 boom. That's not the Hispanic community. What they are telling me when Mr. Quander says 3 times to my face, there's a hazard. I said, what I see is a lot of people with a lot of effort and a lot of willingness to be a part of the event. Don't come and tell me that the Hispanic community brings all of this stress. What it brings is only one day out of the year. What it brings is all the love, all the willingness to have a good time. And from that perspective, Mr. Quanders, and you can also share to Mr. Quander, that is, that I'm tired of listening that the Hispanic community brings a lot of people to the street and we are a failure in our success.
What, did somebody say something to you that they thought that there was going to be shootings or stabbings or?
Mr. Quander stated to us that they are afraid that because of the many people, somebody comes out of the blue moon and starts shooting.
Well, Maria Patricia, if you'll allow me, I think there's a different way to be saying this.
Okay.
Obviously, you can't help. I mean, the Caribbean Festival didn't want people to be shot, and they're the same as us, and people were shot. But I think what she's trying to get to, and I know it's a frustration that I have, is that this is a very valuable activity and event. So yes, you have to be secure, and yes, nobody wants shooting, but they've been dealing with this 6 months now.
6 months.
And then it's okay, you better organize something good. And how can you do that if you've argued for 6 months about where am I going to have it? She's got 2 months and 20 days, now it's 2 months and 18 days to organize something that 90,000 people are going to come to. So I think, to be quite honest, there's a lack of respect for what this is in the city. It happened before and it killed it, and now, you know, I don't think the government wants to kill any more festivals.
Well, I mean, this is a lot like the discussion about ICE. I mean, it's not something that I'm involved in at all. But I will say this, you know, anytime the security concerns, and I've never heard anybody say anything about they're afraid gang members are going to shoot and stuff. And the example you gave is, you know, similar. But when you have that many people, you have to have enough people to manage it. If something were to happen, and suppose maybe it's not somebody, a member of the Latino community, suppose it's somebody who has some animosity towards the Latino community, that comes into their crowd of 90,000 people from the outside and shoots in. You know, we always think of those types of threats because that's what we do. We're police officers. How quickly can we manage to get people out of that area safely and make them safe? You know, we've been thinking that way for many, many years. Unifest is a great example. How do we make sure that the streets are blocked off so that nobody can drive a car through the crowd? Because it happened to us. We saw it happen. So our security concerns are, how do we keep that group of 90,000 people safe from outside threats? It's not that we think that the people in the crowd are the threat. We want to keep you safe from the outside threat. So I don't know if that's what Mr. Quanner is talking about. That's certainly what I think about when I think about 90,000 people trying to have a good time.
Do you budget for these events? Does the MPD budget for these?
There's no possible way.
I think Bowser increased the budget for special events for the task force. So we need to get that number from her. I think we're going to need to talk to address the right people, because I don't think the chief have enough to say, you know, with this.
No, but my only plea to you is basically is whenever we have the date, we say September the 30th, but the location, if we can come to you and actually to make sure our budget, because I only have 2.5 months to raise all these beautiful money and everything to help us in budgeting and seeing maybe we can have some police officers that are off duty and want to participate in our event.
We have reserve officers that we usually will try and get
maybe those kind of things that can ease off the burden that is going to be in my shoulders when is, yes, you have a location, yes, you have a place, you have a date, but then I have to start thinking, because on this 6 months process, I have only been putting big folders together, very nice presentations to where our future location is going to be. But I cannot go to my sponsors and say, here's the event, let me sell you out. But no, I cannot do that. In that case, I need all of your help by the end of the day, not by the end of this day, but the end of whenever it's happened, to please support the Hispanic community that
I know that can be very expensive when all the city agencies come together, and I don't know how much those community events cost.
Used to be, never was.
For Fiesta, Fiesta DC doesn't owe any money to the city.
Not at all.
No, as one that worked for several years with the Hispanic Festival, especially in the area of security, I want to publicly say that the presence of the police was a good deterrent, and also the undercover officers that were there helped to deter some of our Latino elements, namely Mara, trying to wear their colors in this. I'm not saying under your leadership, but during our administration, we had some Maras there trying to engage in, let's call it, color confrontation. But the presence of the police helped to dissipate that nonsense. But in reference to follow up on what Maria said, we had a meeting a couple days ago in which Quander presented a series of options, and under the leadership of Jim Graham, the leadership that was there was able to caucus and present a spot, and that spot is now 16th Street. So the debate internally is whether or not what we propose is going to be endorsed by government. So we are also taking in consideration what you guys have said: access, safety, and ensuring that everybody is protected. But you have done an excellent job.
We'll be out there again. So we'll have them out there.
So the other thing is that I think it is vital, you know, where these festivals happen, where it happens, like in the neighborhood, like when it happened in Pennsylvania Avenue years ago, there were some shootings over there. You have 3 different entities of police forces, you know, that I don't know how they communicate to each other. With here, when it happens in the neighborhood, we have the non-profits, we have the gang prevention unit that we work together, you know, and we already know each other. So we don't know anybody like in the upper,
On Pennsylvania.
you know, Pennsylvania Avenue. That's why I don't know. I was not involved with that festival there. But here, like 2 years ago, we prevented. We work with the intel unit. We work with the nonprofits, so we already knew who are like the troublemakers are.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it's vital for us to have it in the neighborhood because we have more control of it.
So we ain't going to Pennsylvania Avenue.
No, we're not.
All right.
Chief, you've been absolutely splendid once again. The part that was sort of like prepared for her is over. I don't know if she can take.
I'm supposed to be at another event at 3. I can be a little bit
No,
late,
no,
but
no.
my boss is going to be there.
No.
What I'd like, unless people, are there more questions? Pat, you've been. This is Patrick Mara from the
Oh,
school
good,
board.
my permit,
You've been quiet the whole time, and you're my representative on the school board. So perhaps you want to say something to the chief.
I want to ask the chief if I can do a truancy ride along because I asked.
Yeah, you can.
I really tried to do one about a year and a half ago, and it just died out. And I just love to. You know, I've done a lot of ride-alongs.
Is there any reason we can't do a truancy ride along?
I've done ride-alongs in District 6 and 7,
Mm-hmm.
tons. You know,
I don't know if there's any legal issues with the juveniles, but I can check. I don't
Yeah.
know if there is, but if there isn't, I don't.
Yeah, just because it seems. I mean, one thing I would
We
say
have vans
is,
assigned to every district.
because I know you did say that any member of the community can do a ride-along, but I know it's very difficult to do a ride-along unless you go through official channels.
No, you can just
Yeah,
get
it's
paperwork
an
from any district
application.
station.
Yeah,
It's real easy. We have
it's easy.
a dozen ride-alongs every day.
Okay.
So
But
business.
that would be specifically in a truancy ban or anything dealing with juveniles. I'd have to check with legal to make sure it's legal because there's a lot of protections for juveniles.
Okay.
So business, she pointed out business outreach and ride-alongs and business outreach. Are there things that are happening that will help MPD with business outreach?
Yeah,
Well, I know that in my PSA 3, is it that 3 or 4? With the PSAs, I mixed up. But PSA, like in Park Road, my sergeant, he comes with me, like, you know, to walk and introduce to them, you know, to the Spanish officers. So I don't know what.
But if we
other
could partner with
PSAs.
Latino Liaison that's doing the outreach in the areas where the robberies are,
Keep
then
happening.
Yeah, we have been, matter of fact, talking at length with the Office of Latino Affairs and have been a good partner in all this. We have had a number of meetings where we actually talk about the crimes that are occurring within the District of Columbia affecting the Latino population. We have also been in conversations and have done joint outreach efforts in locations there where, you know, we have issues.
what about just regular citizens like Roland and Zethro? Just regular community
Like
members?
Ruth
just regular
Marroquin should be able to know who the sergeant and the PSA that when he has the.
community members that are not part of anything other than the community to talk
Yeah,
to.
we've done that already.
We've done
Home
that.
Depot. We actually give grant money out, so Jobs of Justice is actually dealing with the day laborers, especially in Home Depot. That daily things in the morning, there's outreach.
So what Jackie was talking about, I relate to that in a big way because Jackie was talking about is, I don't know about Adams Morgan because Adams Morgan is pretty plugged in, but for Latino business owners to know who their sergeant is, who their PSA, that is like. So how do you facilitate that
We
to
can
happen?
develop something to do some outreach on.
The commission would also
and the
collaborate.
commissions-
It's just like, you know, you give
So
money out.
I'll write that up here in the notes as well. So, and the ride-alongs, I guess, Chief,
You
is
go to
just,
any district police station and tell them you want to do a ride along, and they give you a form to fill out, and you can do the ride along.
But is there a way to schedule it in advance so that you know that? Because sometimes if you show up, they're too busy?
You can
or-
coordinate
can schedule it with
yeah,
me.
because he
Okay.
does
I'm
parents.
the ride-along
Thank you.
But Chief,
coordinator,
there was
so-
a.
You're the ride-along coordinator?
Yeah, I'm one of those.
Well, there you go. Now I got a ride-along coordinator. that I can talk to. Okay. Yeah. What I like to do, what we do in these things at the end always, is a photograph up here at the front with the chief. All of us. Don't tell me you don't want to. Even the littlest ones of us. Can you all come forward? And Franklin, Gus, and I, we have cameras. Chief, can we take a picture with you?
Yes.
So to make sure we know you were here.
Is there any way you can prepare a summary of the meeting today? So we can-
Yes, I'm going to write a story in both Spanish and English that'll appear on Monday.
Okay.
It'll